The World Series documentary on Apple TV is out today. It is awesome. We are talking with director RJ Cutler. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, welcome to this bonus episode of Locked On Dodgers on this beautiful Friday. We're recording on Thursday, so I don't know if the Dodgers won their home opener last night, but I'll be there tonight to find out. And then, as if coming from back in time, we are talking with director RJ Cutler of the new World Series documentary that takes us for 3 hours through the Dodgers World Series victory over the Yankees last year. RJ, thank you very much for taking some time to talk with us about it. I am so excited about this.
Happy to be here. Yeah, this is you guys are our target audience, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And this is the first time that this sort of, baseball's been making documentaries, quote unquote, about the World Series for decades, many decades. But this is the first time that it's really a documentary. Before it's like, here's all our footage, let's put it together and tell the story of the World Series. This was planned ahead of time and taken as a documentary. So I've got so many questions for you, and I'm going to try to keep my mind straight. But my first question is, when you knew ahead of time you were doing this, and when you're looking at the LCS matchups, and you got the Yankees and Guardians, and you've got the Dodgers and Mets, and you're thinking, okay, if the Yankees win, we're either getting Dodgers-Yankees, which is the classic matchup, or Mets-Yankees, another Subway Series. I know you're a Mets fan, but I'm sure you have good qualities too. But it's how lucky did you feel that the very first time this is happening, you get Dodgers-Yankees?
I mean, it's great storytelling to have the Dodgers and the Yankees. They had played 11 times previously. We all know that the history of the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Yankees of fighting for the soul of the city. It's really the history of Major League Baseball, because then the Dodgers come out to LA and there's still a more amazing Yankee Dodgers World Series. And it had been decades since there had been a Dodgers. It's 1981, so it's 44 years, and that's 2 generations of fans had never experienced a Dodgers Yankees World Series in spite of all the lore. So that was great too. Then you've got these incredible rosters going up against each other. The fact that you've got 2 MVPs, Judge versus Ohtani. The fact that you've got, an incredible roster behind both of those players who are going at it. The fact that both of these managers have, on some level, have their careers on the line, and the teams have struggled in postseason in previous years. There's just nothing but story to work with, which was fantastic. You're right that as a fan, I wouldn't have minded a Subway Series. That wouldn't have been the end of the world. But as a filmmaker, I was happy with the results we got.
Yeah, and for you as a filmmaker, I mean, an extensive history in docs and TV and stuff. But I don't think I found anything sports related. This is your first thing sports related, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lifelong sports fan. I mentioned to you guys before we came on that I'm listening to Locked On every day, but East Coast based, New York Knicks and Mets.
Ryan does a great job on Locked On Mets.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff. But this was the first time I had an opportunity to do a sports story, and I gotta say I loved it so much, because I've been imagining my whole life, that there were great stories to tell in this kind of cinematic, character-driven, emotional way, and that you could shoot it differently. You could tap into, one of the interesting things about this is that we're the only crew that was there. We're the only team that was there of all the world's media that was around. We were the only ones who were there doing what we were doing. Everybody else was capturing it for the day, or maybe the next day. But we were there capturing it for, in a way for history and with a real perspective. So we could tap into all of the cameras that Fox had, Major League Baseball. We gave out a lot of iPhones. We had our own crews with the, so we could the audio, that nobody's really, it's in the moment and it's in the background, but we can forefront it and really use it for filmmaking purposes. And that was great. It was great. We just, I hope we get a chance to do it again and again, because it's always going to deliver in the way that this year definitely did.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I should mention the documentary is called Fight for Glory, the 2024 World Series. It is out today, Friday, on Apple TV. And so I'm going to spoil it for you guys. It's awesome. It's 3 hours long. And I guess, well, you mentioned the audio. So I'm going to jump to that question on my list. How was that? Is that just directional mics? Did you have people mic'd up? Because we get a lot of, when Giancarlo Stanton does get hit by the pitch, but they say he swung, like we can hear his F-bombs.
We sure can.
And obviously
he's pissed, right? He's pissed.
It's not his happiest moment.
No.
He was on the Marlins, you remember, he got hit in the face.
Yeah, man.
And they called that one a swing too. And so
yeah.
He's having deja vu of that. But were those just directional mics, or what's the nerdy technical side behind getting all that awesome audio?
There are microphones all over the place, and in that moment, probably an ump was mic'd. There was a first base. There are mics at home. There are mics at first base. Sometimes we had players, not players in the World Series, because both teams were very concerned about that. Just any distractions, that's it. Listen, we had to tap dance through raindrops making this show. It's very challenging because, first of all, you're dealing with a sport that is culturally very superstitious. It's not like the NBA where people are running around declaring that they're champions, in November. This is baseball. And until you get into the World Series, you're not in the World Series, and they don't want to talk about the World Series. So we have to respect that. We're guests in their home, and we totally get it. And then once they're in the World Series, so we can't really do anything until a couple of days before we're shooting. And then once we're in the World Series, we have to respect the fact that they don't want anything to mess with their mojo. They don't want anything to mess with their state secrets. It's just a whole different kind of situation than we've seen. But we were able to tap into so many different things, and the occasional coach who was mic'd, microphones, in sometimes a little luck is a good plan. Ohtani gets hurt and he happens to be lying on second base, well, there's a microphone in that base. So we can hear him talking to the trainers. And that's great stuff. And then afterwards, we were just we were the recipients of a lot of generosity of time and good fortune. Walker Buehler talked to us, Teoscar talked to us, Will Smith talked to us, Yamo talked to us, Shohei talked to us. Dave Roberts gave us a lot of his time. And then, of course, the Freemans, the whole Freeman family was amazing. Freddie gave us a lot of his time. But then when we were filming with Chelsea Freeman and their whole family, filming with the Betts family, this is the goo that we're able to make our, it's our special sauce that makes this a film. Fans, all of it. So, the technical challenges and the producing challenges are very, very real. But I got an amazing team. We've been in tough situations before, and the results speak for themselves.
That's awesome. I've got a specific question about that trust and that access with the Freemans. So we are talking with RJ Cutler. I'm going to ask that question when we come back. So please keep it locked on Dodgers.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of ballpark food. If you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. They got last minute deals. They got all-in pricing, and they got a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, tickets drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. If you want to be there for the ring ceremony, You can, because Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Dodgers, and you can count on them to help grab tickets that meet your needs. There's a lot coming up in the next few days. There is ring ceremony Friday, or a Hershiser jersey giveaway Saturday, a hoodie on Monday, and Shohei Ohtani bobblehead on Wednesday. That's all in this upcoming homestand, and Game Time can help you get in. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, we are back. RJ, going into break, you were talking about the access with Freddie and Chelsea Freeman, and obviously a lot of this stuff you're doing after the World Series. You're interviewing players, after the fact. But with that stuff, you had, cameras with the Freeman family getting ready for the games. Obviously, Freddie's already at the stadium getting worked on, but Chelsea and the kids and Freddie's cousin getting ready to go to the games. Was that? I guess I've got a two-part question here, or two different questions. But first of all, was that just kind of good luck that it happened to be the World Series MVP that you had that much access to, or was there similar access with others that we don't see, that you just kind of get a bunch of footage and see how it plays out and then put what's best in there? How did that work out?
It's a little bit of the answer to your question is yes. It's a little bit of everything. We're producing, we're just on our toes at all times. And yes, we had the great good fortune of Chelsea and Freddie Freeman, welcoming us into their home, and being able to film with them. And, the right people had iPhones with them at the right times. And there are people who we filmed with who you don't see in the series. But you're not in a position where you're hosing it down, as we say. You're not filming everybody. So you are counting on a certain amount of I don't even want to say that you're counting on it. You're just, we're always just in the moment and on our toes. And that's the way it's got to work, in a project like this. But honestly, that's what we do. That's what we're good at. That's when we're in and our crews are just, we worked with a lot of people. You mentioned earlier that this isn't, that for really since World War II, since the U.S. government asked Major League Baseball to produce a World Series film in World War II so that the troops overseas could watch the World Series, they've been doing year after year. They've been doing this kind of clip reel of the World Series. It's produced and they do it very, very. They've been doing it very quickly and doing it really well, given how quickly they've done it. But this year, the key was that first of all, we got Apple TV Plus involved, so we had more resources to work with. We took a little bit more time. Usually it's done by Christmas. We took 4 months, which was still incredibly quickly, but that extra time allows us to really craft the stories more fully. And we were working with bigger crews, but some of those people were folks who had worked on the previous years. These guys know baseball and they know how to get access. And then there's this other thing, which is, as I say, there's a lot going on that you have access to, but nobody's really taking advantage. Nobody wants it. We're to film the press room in a more cinematic way. So it feels like a scene rather than just a flat shot of somebody giving an interview. For the nightly news, it's good to have the flat shot of the guy giving the interview. But for our purposes, seeing it as a scene and knowing that Aaron Boone is being called to task for having gone to Nestor Cortez, that's a specific, scene-based moment that works for us. And that's kind of how you do this.
Jeff, you want to go to your second part?
Yeah, I'll jump into my second Freddie Freeman question. So we find out in episode 1 of the documentary, Chelsea mentions to the documentary that Freddie has a rib issue. That wasn't public knowledge at that point in time. We also find out that Jeff Passan knew about it during the World Series, which, Passan's the one who eventually wrote about it after the fact. So this is where we find out that Jeff Passan sat on that, which was good because the Dodgers weren't publicizing that. but specifically with Chelsea Freeman being willing to mention it to you guys, like how did you build that level of trust that she felt comfortable sharing a state secret with you and that it wouldn't get out until March when the documentary came out?
I mean, again, we come with a history. We come with we're experienced producers. We had given them our word that, you know, there weren't going to be any state secrets revealed. That's not what we were there to do. You know, we're not as I say, we're not breaking news. We're making a movie, and we're going to operate within those parameters comfortably, you know, and it gives us certain privilege. But listen, you're talking to a guy who began his career making a movie inside Bill Clinton's presidential campaign in 1992. You know, I got to be a man, and I was a man of my word then when I promised them that the secrets wouldn't be revealed. And you know, you have to do that your whole. It's really who we are. So that's the build, but you've identified the building of trust as the key to being able to make these films. At the same time, you've got to build that trust really quickly. And fortunately, we were able to. You know, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the stories, what the families are going through, that story's never really told. You know, to me, you may remember one of my favorite moments in the whole series is when Chelsea's getting ready. She's packing in New York. She doesn't know if there's going to be another game or what's going on. They're up 3-1, but suddenly they're feeling back on their heels and they don't know what that's all about. And her son, her young son turns to her and says, "What happens if Daddy loses tonight?" And she goes, "Oh," you know, there's that. And you realize, my God, it's not just the players, you know, there's so many other people who are going through this. And that's an insight into baseball that all three of us as lifelong baseball fans can appreciate, because you don't really experience it in that real way.
It's so good. So
yeah,
good.
Especially the fact, like, me watching it, I know what's going to happen, and I'm still on the edge of my seat, like, throughout this whole doc of not knowing. But was the 3 episodes always part of it, or if had this gone to a game 7, do you think this would have extended a little more?
Well, the way TV works is you make a deal for a certain number of episodes. Certainly, I guess if it had gone 7 games and we couldn't figure out how to do it, we might have gone to Apple and talked to them about doing it differently. But it would have been, you know, unusual. Our challenge was get it into 3 episodes. So, and as you know, they're stuffed, those 3 episodes. So I don't know. I've often thought, my God, what if there had been a game 6 or a game 7? What would we have done? Because we you know, it's 3 full hours and there isn't a lot of fat in there.
Yeah, selfishly, I could have watched probably 10 hours of this. 10
Yeah, can we just get
down
the rest
easy,
of your
right?
footage?
Yeah.
It goes down easy, man. What say again, Jeff? Sorry.
I just said, can we just get the rest of your footage? Can you send that over to us?
Nope.
Yeah, I've watched the whole thing twice. It's and there's parts that I've watched 8 or 10 times. Yesterday on Wednesday, when there's the day between the end of spring training and the start of the season, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? The no Dodger game. Hey, I've got a 3-hour documentary I could watch again. So I did. I sat down with my brother and we watched it. You know, we mentioned earlier that there was a possibility of a freeway or a subway series, and you know, the way it turned out, the difference, the contrast between LA sports fans and New York sports fans. And you know, I know you are originally a New York sports fan. I think you're based in LA now. So you've kind of lived both sides of things. For me personally, I felt like a subway series would have been more of a regional thing. Like I think the amount of New York sports fan in this documentary is right as high as I could have handled.
Well, you know, have some mercy, my friend. Those guys have to watch you win a World Series.
That's true. So I guess
you can take a few Yankees fans. By the way, if it had been Mets fans and Yankee fans are very different. They're very, I mean, based on just experience alone. You know, I always say to my Yankee fan friends, you know, do Do you root for General Electric also? Like those guys, they're not interested in anything but winning. You know, we're Mets fans. We're like, last year was a triumph, man. That was good. And we laid down for you so you guys could get to the World Series because we knew how much you needed it. We let you get in there. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was just so funny to me. Like, you got Dodger fans, they're like, oh yeah, I used to save up my lunch money to buy tickets to Dodger game. And then you got Yankee fans like, I'm the story, man. I am the Yankees. Yankees can't do this without me, man. Like, oh.
Well, the battle of the cities is a big part of this. That's something we knew from the beginning, and it will be as long as we get to do this. The character of that's, again, that's baseball. That's what's so great about it. There's that moment in game one where one of the announcers says there are 28 other cities where the teams wish they could be in this moment. And it's true. And every one of those cities has a different personality. Every one of those fan bases has a different personality. That's why there's a Locked On for every team. And it's, what we just listened to there was an Eastern Division Locked On, where all of the Locked On hosts got together to talk about the upcoming season. It's great. It's great to feel the different personalities, and we very intentionally drew that out in the Dodger Yankees World Series.
Yeah, we are talking with RJ Cutler, who's the director of Fight for Glory and also apparently publicist for the Locked On Podcast Network, which we appreciate. We're going to come back.
I like something, I like it, man.
That's awesome. I have a specific question about my favorite scene in the documentary and how in the world it happened. So thank you all for making us your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Baseball season is in full swing. There's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, all you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. I think they had first inning pitch count. I know my brother built his lineup and had the less on the pitch count for both Scooble and Blake Snell in the first inning, and it hit for him, and he tidied up a little bit. So there's a lot to get into. Prize Picks, go check it out. They're constantly adding stats, constantly adding different things. There was a $20 free play. Well, not free play, but you get to get the money back in bonus, but if you win. So there's a lot. They're always doing stuff, and there's a lot going on right now. So go check out Prize Picks. Download the app. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, we are back talking with RJ Cutler, director of the World Series documentary Fight for Glory, out today on Apple TV Plus. It is awesome. And RJ, my favorite scene in the movie, and I have to call it a movie at this point because, and you've mentioned several times, you're making a movie. This is not a recap video of the World Series. This is a movie about the World Series. And maybe the point where that was the most obvious to me is Game 5. Dave Roberts comes out to talk to Blake Treinen, trying to decide if he's going to pull him out. And, he tells him one more batter. And then Treinen gets Giancarlo Stanton to pop up to right field on the first pitch. And then we have Blake Treinen's voice saying, Doc told me if I looked into the dugout, he was pulling me out of the game. And as we see that, we see video of Treinen very clearly looking away from the dugout. Mm-hmm. But then the moment when Dave Roberts is talking, we hear Dave Roberts' voice talking about how conflicted he was, what a hard decision it was for him. And we see him up on the top step of the dugout looking out at Treinen. And then as Dave Roberts says, and I looked out at Freddie Freeman, and Freddie looked at me, and he, and he describes this unspoken conversation they had where Freddie, with his eyes, with his motions, told him, leave Treinen in there, let him do this. And as we're hearing this, we have a camera angle that shows Freddie Freeman from behind, Dave Roberts on the top step of the dugout. Freddie slaps his glove. Dave Roberts takes a step back down from the top step. If this was a movie, a fiction movie, I would be yelling at the TV. That's so unrealistic. There's no way we would have that camera angle while this is happening. And yet this is a documentary and we have that camera angle. Was that one of your cameras? Was that just one of the 18 game cameras that's recorded? I know it's not from the game feed. I went back and watched that inning to see if that was there. It's not there, but you found that. Tell me, I want to know everything about that scene.
Okay, first of all, I want to say I'm going to publicize Locked On. You get to publicize A Fight for Glory, man. You got it. You nailed it. And we worked very hard on crafting that scene and going through all our footage and making sure that we had that angle behind Freddie. And you kind of very subtly see his head move. And Doc talks about Freddie giving him that little look. And you're in it. And the whole idea of how we use interviews, the fact that nobody's there are no sit-down interviews. There are no talking heads in this documentary.
There is no narrator.
There's no narrator. This is all very intentional so that those moments pay off. You are in their heads. You're in the moment with them. And that's what I wanted. That's, conceptual from the beginning. And yeah, that happened to be one of our cameras, but it could have been another camera. We have access to all cameras. So that's the beauty, because Major League Baseball is our partner here, and they control it's the World Series belongs to them. It's not like the regular season. During the regular season, the teams control what's on the field and the local media, but Major League Baseball controls it in the World Series and in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure. So we have access to all of it, which is great. And we can go through every single camera. And in this case, that happened to be ours. We have a couple of outfield cameras. We have 8 crews, but there's something like 30 or 40 cameras all over the place that we also have access to, not to mention the iPhones. We're with Mookie's family when Freddie hits the grand slam. We're also with Freddie's family. That just happens to be, people with iPhones who you can do that now. Everybody's a cameraman in the world. So you sometimes you get fortunate, but to get that kind of good fortune. I thought the scene you were going to say was being with Freddie and Chelsea after game 1. Because that's another one of those moments that you kind of can't believe you got, because there's Freddie. He's just hit the grand slam. It's beautiful that Chelsea's celebrating with Doc and with Brianna, and all of that's going on. So you see what the family's like, and then she sees Freddie, and they walk off, and Freddie's like, I can't even enjoy this anymore. I got to get ready for tomorrow.
So tired, so stressed about game 2.
Yeah.
It's just like you just had the moment, like the biggest home run in World Series history, and he opens the Escalade door for Chelsea.
He's driving himself home, and he
walks around the car.
He's like got a lunch bucket. He's a guy who's got to go back to the salt mines the next day.
I got to be back at 8 a.m. to get taped up tomorrow.
Yeah, and by the way, he says the most kind of profound thing. If we don't win now we really got to win the World Series, or this historic thing that nobody has ever done but me. Who's going to give? Nobody, unless we win the World Series. And we know he's right. And that's baseball, man. That is baseball.
Absolutely.
That's right. You talked about like going through or filming through iPhones. So I work in baseball, social media. So I was at all these games, but I am kind of seeing a lot through cell phone footage, like trying to, get a good angle for, my job and everything else. So when I got to sit down and watch like game 1 over, I don't think I realized like the impact of game 1, and episode 1 is all game 1. And by the end of it, like, I'm a Dodge fan, lifelong, whatever, but it felt a little different in the moment because I have to worry about filming. So I filmed Freddie's home run from, an angle of the stadium, but going back and watching it and the way you guys broke it down cinematically, I'm crying by the end of it. Like, I'm in definitely full tears. I know you mentioned that in one of the notes that your daughter was in tears watching that. Was that just cinematically, how was building out that episode? Like, how it ends, but how to get there.
Yeah. Again, it's first of all, I'm working with some of the best craftspeople that there is. Our editors are amazing. I have a number 2 showrunner, a guy named Justin Youngfleisch, who's a lifelong baseball fan and player. And everybody on our team gets it. and understands. And by the way, we really didn't have much time to put this stuff together. So your margin for error is really narrow, and you don't necessarily have to get it all right the first time, but you got to get it right much faster than we normally do when we're making these films. I made the Billie Eilish documentary for Apple, and that was a 16-month edit. This is a 3.5, 4-month edit. So, and it's 3 hours long. So, but building a moment like the Freddie home run, the grand slam, to me, they're kind of two tent poles. One is the moment, the bat dropping moment, where you see the fans leap up and you're just like, you're feeling the exaltation. And the other is Freddie on the screen in his dad's face. And so you're building everything from those two tent poles and we have this incredible story to tell. Not only the same story that every one of us would tell. We have two great stories. One is the universal story. You would tell it, I would tell it. I spent my childhood in the backyard saying, it's the bottom of the ninth, game 7 of the World Series. And RJ Cutler hits, that's what Freddie's telling you, because he did it too. And then the other story is the specific story. He talks about his dad in the wake of his mother's death and how baseball means everything to him. So there you go.
Yeah.
You work with those tools, and pretty soon it's all coming together. We have a certain amount of slow-mo that we can work with from the pitcher's mound. How many times we showed the swing, what music we work with. I got to give Justin the credit for using the natural, Randy Newman natural music. I was like, really? We're going to do that? And he was like, yeah, because look how it covers the whole sequence. We can use the music all the way through to the water, to the Gatorade moment. We can get the whole thing in there. And he was right. It was great. That score by Randy Newman from The Natural has the triumph, but it also has the aftermath. And those are the kinds of things that you're working with. That's
awesome. You mentioned that you're all baseball fans, and I think that's what really comes through in this. Like, one of the reasons that the documentaries, the recap videos made by Major League Baseball are always so good is because it's baseball people making them. And this movie is clearly made by people who know how to make a movie, but also by people who know baseball. I was on a little documentary TV show a couple years ago talking about Yasiel Puig. And the guy's like, okay, let's talk about Puig Mania. And so I bring up, and I'm talking about, like Fernando Mania in 1981. And this guy, he's like, what's Fernando Mania? Obviously, it's a reference to Beatles Mania. I'm like, it's Dodger Stadium, bro. It's Fernando Mania in Puig form, and like, I was so annoyed that, like, why is this guy doing something about baseball when he doesn't know anything about baseball? And this is so the opposite. This is like, you go through this whole thing and you're like, you can just feel this was made by somebody who loves baseball as much as I do.
Well, it's true. It's true. I bet we're tied for loving baseball. Real baseball fans. That's how we feel about the sport. But I will say that in making it, we were constantly talking about two audiences. We were talking about you, and we were talking about somebody who doesn't know anything about baseball or doesn't like baseball. We were talking about, you mentioned my daughter. We were talking about my daughter who won't watch a Mets game with me. Can't get her to watch a Mets game.
Smart girl.
It's true. And she loves her Dodgers hat now. But she watched episode 1 and was screaming, cheering, crying, so happy. So we're always asking, how do you give the viewer who doesn't know anything the information they need while not making it seem silly for you, and also knowing what you want to see, knowing what the next shot is something that, unless how much you follow the ball, how you vary the home runs, all of those things. And you mentioned Fernando. It's worth saying, because I'm often asked, but don't talk a lot about this. What didn't make it in. And as we know, Fernando died on the day of game 1, And there's a beautiful story to tell about the, the memories and Oral Hershiser throwing out the first pitch and the way all of that. But, some things don't make it in. And that's just the way it is.
If this was a Dodgers video, that would be in there, but this is an everyone video. So, yeah.
And also we want Yankee fans to appreciate it. And and with good reason. They've got reason to appreciate it. The Yankees were within one swing of the bat of winning every game they lost. Yeah. And that's baseball. That's baseball too.
Yeah. I was already a big Aaron Judge fan. I walked away from this documentary a bigger Aaron Judge fan. Just, the way he handled everything, it is, I can't imagine watching it as a Yankee fan, but hopefully they will get to a point where they can watch it and appreciate it, because it's so good. We are about out of time. This, it's called Fight for Glory, 2024 World Series, out today, Friday on Apple TV. I could not recommend it highly enough. It is so good. RJ, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about this. I wish we could spend 3 hours talking about it. I wish I could sit and watch it with you and pause and say, okay, what about this? What about this? Maybe someday we'll do that. And, we record it. We'll do a 12-hour bonus episode of Locked On Dodgers watching it with you. But this was great. I wish we could end this with the closing theme to This Week in Baseball, like you ended episode 3 of the movie. Like, what a way to end it. The best song ever. I'm like, my mother-in-law plays in a symphony. I'm like, you guys got to play this, because this is the best song ever. RJ, thank you so much for your time.
It's my great pleasure. And, go Locked On and LFGM, baby.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you in the championship series.
Sounds great. Thank you, Dodger fans. That'll wrap up this bonus episode. You know how to get a hold of us. Hit the credits, Vince.